Wow. 27 August 2023, and we are on our first day since the announcement of President Mnangagwa as the winner of the Zimbabwe 2023 presidential elections. And today I spent the whole day talking to members of different political parties. And it is clear to me that we are now at the verge of something quite big, which is going to happen within the next 2 weeks. So in my discussions with the different political parties, it is clear that each side feels that they are correct and each side is holding onto their position. So if you look at President Mnangagwa's side, everyone there is celebrating. If you look at Nelson Chamisa's side, everyone there is in the mode where they're saying we've been rigged. So this is where things are standing. But Nelson Chamisa was out today and he made the statement that he does not accept the result that came out in the elections, which is the win of President Mnangagwa. He gave reasons why he does not accept the results. At the same time, President Mnangagwa came out and made a statement and he said that he's happy to be winning. And if Chamisa feels that there is a problem with the results, he should go to the court or whatever. He knows the process. So he should be able to read that statement which was put out by President Mnangagwa today. You will be able to see also the statement that was put out by Nelson Chamisa today, where he did not accept the results. But I can see that Dr. Fergus Mteneri is joined here. So I'm gonna very shortly let him into the studio. But I want to make some key points. And the key point that I want to make is that Nelson Chamisa is at a point there where he needs to make a very important decision. Because automatically, because he's the only member or the only leader of an opposition party in Zimbabwe that is in parliament, he is automatically the leader of the opposition in the parliament of Zimbabwe. So previously it was Douglas Monzora, but now Nelson Chamisa has assumed that position. I don't think he is in parliament or he's going to be in parliament, but automatically he's a leader of the biggest opposition party in Zimbabwe. So he influences events in the political party, in the parliament of Zimbabwe. Now, the question that arises is, if you look at other countries like South Africa, or countries like the UK or the United States, every opposition party that has got a big representation in parliament automatically is in the government of national unity. Here in South Africa, they've even appointed members of the opposition into the parliament or into the government as government ministers. The problem that we have in Zimbabwe is that there's always been this huge polarization. And the last 5 years, I've told many people that the last 5 years have been wasted. Nothing has happened. And if you look at President Mnangagwa, he has struggled to attract capital into Zimbabwe. People don't want to invest in Zimbabwe. And within the next 5 years, if President Mnangagwa continues with the current government that he's got, which is only ZANU-PF members, he's also going to find it very, very difficult to attract capital. So what I would expect is obviously President Mnangagwa to make the first move, approach Nelson Chamisa and his party, and propose that these members of the CCC be included in the current government. Before we even talk of the things that need to be done, Nelson Chamisa and his party and members of his party should be included in a government of President Mnangagwa that is going to form. Obviously, there are many challenges with that arrangement, but previously this has been proposed when Nelson Chamisa was going to get a position as leader of the opposition. And I know that many CCC members, they think that Nelson Chamisa can go to court and win. Unfortunately, the prospect of reversing a win by President Mnangagwa is very, very low. As we speak right now, Nelson Chamisa and his party, the CCC, they do not have enough V11s. They're now talking of V23s. If you look at all the things that they're talking about, they do not have enough V11s. It's not possible to collect enough V11s because a lot can happen. And if you look at the ZEC results, it's clear, if you keep digging into those results, it's clear that rigging took place. And I've always been saying almost all elections are rigged. It's clear that there was rigging in this election. And SADC has already said it. And I've explained to you what rigging is. Rigging doesn't mean changing the numbers. There are 3 ways of rigging. I've explained to you what rigging is. When you do what has happened, where you open the polling late, when you put fuzz at the door to scare people, that's rigging. But you cannot expect it to take that to court and translate that into V11s or translate that into a win. So Nelson Chamisa is most unlikely to prove that Mnangagwa rigged it that way. It's impossible. So now we're looking at another option, another approach on how we can move forward. And I think at this point, I need to let in Dr. Fedez Mtenere. I'm going to let you in a second. So just get ready to get into the studio. And as I'm saying here, Chamisa and his party, the CCC, by being outside of government, they are disadvantaging themselves. And they should be doing something to get into actual government, because you cannot change a system that you're not part of. This has been the biggest weakness of the CCC. They are not able to influence the government. They need to be in the government. They need to be having ministers in that government. And they need to move away from the thought that they can force President Mnangagwa to reverse the elections or to... So, sorry, Doc, I see you've entered. Let's welcome you here. How are you, Doc?
I'm very well, Gambakwe, and a very warm welcome to all our viewers.
Right, so Doc, you found me in the middle here of explaining the situation that Nelson Chamisa finds himself in, which is that he does not have enough V11s to prove rigging, although we all know that rigging took place. And my proposal is that if I was Chamisa, I would then try to get into the government of President Mnangagwa, accept that result that has happened, because it's almost impossible to reverse. I don't know what you think. What's your view on that?
Okay, thank you very much, Gambakwe, for this opportunity. Advocate Nelson Chamisa does not necessarily have to accept the result, because basing even from the SADC SADC preliminary report, this election was not credible. And therefore there is a way to get to the court and to try and prove whether they have enough V11s or not. That is a matter of conjecture right now, but I think they have a right to go to the Constitutional Court to prove their case, and the case is there. We have seen not only from the SADC observer report, but we have evidence of what has been done from you know, the delimitation report itself. We know how controversial it was. There's been a process of rigging that has happened. The delimitation report, we talk about the violence that occurred during the election process. We already have Tinashe Chitsunge, who was killed because of politics. And on election day itself, we know what ZANU-PF did, that through ZEC, they did not allow many people, particularly in the opposition strongholds, to be able to vote. And many people have called it voter suppression. And whereas in the rural areas, we never saw that. We have seen fuzz activities which was a matter of intimidation of voters, and it's all clear for everyone. So just on that matter, Advocate Nelson Chamisa can approach the court and prove. And in fact, with the V11s, which I want to believe that they have, they can show where the numbers are not tallying. That's the first thing. The second thing is that ZANU-PF and ZEC, I mean, their collusion to even announce these results promptly, yet everyone expected that they will announce them on Monday as they had announced. You can realize that it's their strategy to be on a strong footing, that once President Mnangagwa is declared a winner, then they can have an upper hand in any negotiation that is going to come. There is no doubt that there is going to be a negotiation that is going to be triggered by SADC processes, because now SADC observer mission will now have to send their report to the chairperson of the SADC Troika, President Hakainde Hichilema, who will in turn table it at the SADC summit, the head of states summit. And we know that from then on, that report will trigger in a process in which there is going to be a mediation process. And there will be a parallel process of the court process by CCC and the SADC. Now, what ZANU-PF has tried to do here is that they know very well that if they had allowed a process in which President Mnangagwa is not declared, then they will be on a weaker footing. So right now, Advocate Nelson Chamisa, from what we know from history, is that he is going to be forced by the SADC processes to get into a government of national unity. I mean, all signs are there that we are back to 2008. He will be forced to enter into a negotiation with ZANU-PF and therefore forced to get into a government of national unity. And I think at this stage, one would advise, as you are rightly saying, that in that instance, then Advocate Nelson Chamisa should demand whatever he thinks he deserves, but should not at all opt out of a government of national unity. But history teaches us that once they get into that process, one like the global political agreement, whatever it would be called now, Dr. Mandas was calling it an international conference. CCC should make sure that they get key ministries, which makes key decisions. And it should be a proper government of national unity in which there is shared executive power. You don't want a situation. I mean, of course, right now we are faced with another constitutional change, probably when we get into that, in which, like in the GPA, we had the formation now of the prime minister's position and his deputies and the presidency. I think once we get to that stage, Advocate Nelson Chamisa should make it a point that they do not settle for social services ministries, but should definitely demand for an equal share of key ministries. You know, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Justice. Those ones come to mind when you talk about it. There is no doubt where we are now that there is going to be that proposition of a government of national unity and advice to the, because right now CCC has got 73 seats to what, 136 for ZANU-PF. The good thing is that ZANU-PF does not have an outright two-thirds majority, which is another thing which can be exploited by the CCC, in that in the next 5 years, definitely ZANU-PF will now engage itself not only in the economic troubles that are there, not only in the issues that people have continued to demand from them, but they will have to contend with the divisions within the party, with the jostling of positions, because a proposition for changing the constitution to allow President Mnangagwa to run for the third term is not even there, because the CCC now is in parliament. has got a strong presence in parliament. And so they can then exploit that window in which ZANU-PF will have to deal with its own internal processes, which now are a very new phenomenon because they will now have to choose a successor, which they have never done. So Triple C must have a multi-pronged approach, but they should definitely, when we get to that bridge, should definitely not refuse the proposition of a government of national unity. But as at the moment, let them go through their process, reject the result because of what blatantly is there to show that this election was rigged. But then once SADC comes in, they should now be eyes on the ball to make sure that whatever decisions are going to be made there, they come out with a strong position. And in fact, from the negotiator, because right now, obviously, what is going to be triggered is finding a negotiator in this whole process. And in that, they should make sure that they put their foot down to make sure that we have a neutral negotiator in this. So, Gambakwe, in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that we are definitely moving towards Triple C being forced by the processes into a government of national unity. But it is now what they have to do from that process.
Okay, Doc, I really appreciate what you've said, and I want us to wrap this up very, very quickly. There's one thing I want to mention, and that is today I spent the whole day speaking to a lot of people from the different parties, from ZANU-PF and from CCC. And as you all know, yesterday I gave you the results before the results. So believe what I say. These guys are all holding on to their positions. There's no one who wants to budge between the two sides. Everyone thinks they're correct. And the mistake that I see is happening here is, especially on the side of CCC, they're failing to learn from what happened in 2018 when they refused to accept this position of leader of the opposition. However, the same mistake is also being made on President Mnangagwa's side. When you realize that when they didn't accept to work with Nelson Chamisa and they tried to work with Douglas Munzora, no one in the international community wanted to touch them. So ZANU-PF eventually failed to deliver on their political program and on the economic programs. This is where we are, and the people are the ones that are going to suffer. So I agree with you that a GNU is going to happen, but I don't agree with you that it should be initiated by outsiders. I actually think we should go back to the religious leaders. You remember they suggested the 7-year Sabbath. I don't know if you still remember that suggestion.
I remember Bishop Mtata mentioning the same, yes.
So my suggestion is, instead of going to the outsiders, we should go back to that suggestion of a 7-year Sabbath, because the political environment in Zimbabwe is not conducive for elections. You can clearly see that the election was rigged. I'm saying this to you because right now, if you go and add up the numbers, they don't even add up. The numbers that ZEC produced right now, they are going to be changed again because they don't add up. The voting that took place is not up to international standards. So if you hold another election today, you are going to have the same problems again.
Gambakwe, I agree with you on some aspects. Definitely a locally initiated negotiation is out of the question. We have seen in 2018, it was Advocate Nelson Chamisa who actually asked to say, let's have a negotiation, let's sit on the table, but let's have a neutral mediator. And he never asked for an external mediator for that matter, but he had asked to say, let's have someone that is neutral, for which ZANU-PF under President Mnangagwa refused. And President Mnangagwa chose to cherry pick his, the pseudo opposition guys, some who did not even have 20 votes, and we saw the creation of Poland. So to expect that President Mnangagwa would initiate that kind of process, it's out of the question. What we should be happy about is that SADC already has got its leg inside. Their preliminary report is very clear. The election was not credible. And if an election was not credible, therefore, there has to be remediation there. And that remediation, trust me, Gambakwe, while it is supposed to come from South Africa, right now, South Africa is, of course, in a weak position. We have seen Fikile Mbalula's casting aspersions on Advocate Nelson Chamisa and then Triple C. We have seen him speak ill about Zimbabwe and the opposition, and therefore does not stand in good stead to lead that. President Ramaphosa himself is fighting Pala. He is in a weakened position within ANC, and his concern is not even an international negotiation. So for me, South Africa is in a weak position. However, we cannot discard South Africa or any other person, eminent person from South Africa that will be brought in. President Hichilema, who actually is the head of the SADC Troika, presents a better option. But definitely, Gambakwe, SADC and the African Union are already in it, because both their reports are saying this election is not credible. What ZANU-PF is just doing right now, obviously you'll expect the hardline stance to say, we have declared a winner, a winner is declared. You saw Professor Murwira trying to force the SADC ambassadors that change your proposition. But SADC doesn't operate that way. That report, that preliminary report, was produced out of all the member states who are represented in the SADC observer mission. So it's not that easy that ZANU-PF can just try to push. But what they're trying to do is to show a hardline stance so that they can affect or influence whatever will come out of that negotiation process. But definitely, Gambakwe, the processes we now have, everything that is happening is pushing towards that negotiated settlement. And definitely, in as much as we would want something local, but it is going to be headed by the region or by the African Union. And I'm happy that they have seen it firsthand themselves. And they have said it before anyone has said it. That's why ZANU-PF has panicked and announced these results. We know they are concocted so that they can be in a stronger footing to say, we now have a president in place. That's why Professor Murwira was harping on, we have our own processes. We are sovereign. If you look at the words you are saying, is that we are sovereign. We have our own constitution that cannot be interpreted by outsiders. All that halabaloo that he was on about is to try and influence any weaker elements within SADC. But SADC has already taken a stance, and we know, one thing we know about SADC is once they take a stance, whether in a weaker position and now in a stronger position, they will follow it through. So a negotiated process is coming. And the Triple C, for me, is that they should definitely indicate that they are willing for that a negotiated settlement. However, they should insist on a neutral and a very respected person to be a mediator. Two, when they get into that GNU negotiation, they should demand for equal sharing of whatever is going to come out of the process. They should be reminded by the 2008 a situation where they just helped to prop up ZANU-PF. This time they should not be the PR people for ZANU-PF into the 2028 elections. But there is no doubt that we are headed towards a process of a government of national unity.
Okay, Doc, thank you very much for joining this discussion. And I want us to wrap up with a recap of what we just said. Firstly, we said it's not possible to reverse a win or a declared win by President Mnangagwa by force. Chamisa is not capable of doing that. If Chamisa goes to the court, he's wasting his time, because the rigging didn't happen in the documents only. The rigging happened on the papers and also outside. So there are things you can't prove through a court process. And then we said elections are not, there's no conductive environment right now in Zimbabwe for a rerun. If you do a rerun now, either you're going to have the same result or you're going to have something even worse. And I was proposing a local mediation by the religious leaders in Zimbabwe instead of people outside. So President Mnangagwa should kickstart that process and approach the religious leaders who had came back with a 7-year Sabbath suggestion and restart that process. That is my proposal. And you are proposing that there should be someone who is more independent, someone who is maybe from the AU or from SADC, a process that is not influenced in Zimbabwe. And the CCC should take powerful ministries. They should not just be in there to sanitize the ZANU-PF rigging. And we are all agreed, me and you, that the result right now is not acceptable internationally. It's been rejected internationally. Chamisa has rejected the result, and it will be for the good of both President Mnangagwa and Nelson Chamisa to talk and to come up with another solution, which is not just pushing forward with something that is not acceptable internationally and locally. Is there anything I left, Doc, or anything you want to add?
No, most definitely. What you have said sums up what we are saying here, that the CCC now should, I think, trigger the whole court process. I am one for the court process. It is okay for them to go through that, because there is evidence to show that this election is rigged. Secondly, where I might just differ with you is on that sabbatical, which was once proposed. We are a constitutional democracy, and I don't want us to add to a coup, the coup that was done in 2017, by making another coup on our own constitution by saying let's have a sabbatical on elections. But let's have a process that takes us now from here to 2028, but with the CCC having made sure that they are within that government. And when they are within that government, they should be advised that they should take these 5 years, starting from whenever that process starts, to make sure that all reforms that needs to be done, electoral reforms, that involves the electoral environment, the body that runs the elections, issues to do with some constitutional provisions that need to be highlighted to make sure that any subsequent election is done in a free and fair manner. All those, they should make sure that they focus on that. In as much as the economy is a pressing issue where they need to stabilize it and make sure that, because once they get in, the international community would literally be inclined to want to support. But CCC should not then get immersed in the fact that, yes, they have stabilized the economy. They should keep their eyes on the ball and make sure that they demand for all those reforms that need to be done before the next election. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. And this is going to be a topic that you and me are going to handle a lot, because as you can see, right now I can count over 2,000 comments here. Everyone wants to know what is going to happen next. And what many people don't understand is that, and I know this for a fact, so I want the CCC guys who are my brothers to understand this. It's not possible for Chamisa to have all the V11s. You should discount the V11s from this discussion. And if he doesn't have the V11s, he's going to lose. I know this for a fact because I've got many friends on both sides. ZANU-PF themselves, they don't have enough V11s. They had 60% in their initial tally. That's why you see the results looking so odd, because ZANU-PF tried to push through the narrative that they're 60%, and it didn't work. Both sides, ZANU-PF and CCC, they don't have enough V-levels. However, you should also understand one thing, that President Mnangagwa is very, very powerful. He's not someone you can push around. If he wants right now, he can just continue with the inauguration and nothing will happen. That is how things stand in Zimbabwe. And I think many of you here, you know
But
that ZANU-PF
on that one, I tend to disagree with you. There is no way President Mnangagwa, even if he can put a brave face, Zimbabwe particularly cannot operate normally without the buy-in and support from SADC. So right now, he is in a very odd place. He is in a very uncomfortable place. That is why Professor Murwira's statement today and the jumping up and down that Chris Mtranga has been doing is just to force SADC, because they know without SADC's support. So his hand is already weakened because SADC is already in there, and SADC has already pronounced in its preliminary report. So the crocodile may be the crocodile, but this time it is without SADC support, it's a lizard, and that I can assure you.
Okay, I want to remind you why I'm saying that. A few years ago, President Ramaphosa sent a delegation to Zimbabwe. Do you know what happened to that delegation?
Yes. Yes, I know that. But look, at that time, there was no constitutional and regional issue that they could hold on to say, because of this particular issue which affects the region, we are sending an envoy to negotiate. And on that basis, then the South Africa sort of withdrew. But right now, there is an issue coming from an observer mission to which Zimbabwe is party, to which Zimbabwe invited. They invited them. No, I mean, if anything, it is the most credible body that was observing. Of course, with the European Union, I know, we all know that they can say, these are the West, they are supporting their boys. I mean, that ruse, we have always had it. If it is the Jimmy Carter Center, they would say, oh, these are Americans, they created Zidera. But right now, you have SADC, you have COMESA, you have got the AU, which are regional. Remember, African solutions to African problems. This is an African problem. And Zimbabwe and President Mnangagwa can never, and he knows it. He knows it. This is historical. All our liberation struggles, we executed them through support, through one another. That is why they are trying to pick Dr. Nevas Mumba. They are trying to alienate him from the report that was produced by the whole SADC, so that they can then say, Dr. Nevas Mumba is HH's boy, is HH's envoy, and HH is a friend to Nelson Chamisa. They can't do that. HH is the chairman of the SADC Troika, organ Troika, and he presents to the SADC summit head of states that there is a problem in Zimbabwe. And once that process is triggered, President Mnangagwa knows very well, and he has been there when President Mugabe, who was stronger than him anyway, he knows how it operates. They will be forced to the table. They will have to come down to a position where they will have to sanitize both the coup and this election, which is totally not credible as to the report. So, Gambakwe, it's not easy. They can put brave faces, but President Mnangagwa knows very well that he's in a hot seat.
Okay, Doc, we can go on for the whole night. This is a very interesting topic. And the last thing I want to say is to all the CCC guys, respect ZANU-PF people. They voted for Nelson Chamisa. Multiple thousands of ZANU-PF supporters voted for Nelson Chamisa. And I think we cannot go without making the CCC guys understand that. And Chamisa must come out and appreciate those ZANU-PF supporters that voted for him. I didn't hear him today mentioning that.
But they are
You could not
citizens.
have had that win.
But they are citizens. Gambakwe, unless there is a research, we know very well that that could have been something that happened, that ZANU-PF people was favored Advocate Nelson Chamisa as an individual. However, there has to be research to show what kind of number. But in every statement of his, he mentions citizens. ZANU-PF people are citizens. Their party is based on citizens for everyone. In fact, their key phrase was that the president for everyone, Triple C for everyone. The manifesto was for everyone, including ZANU-PF. And I think they have already been captured within that slogan that they ran with. And I think they should not be singled out necessarily, but they know themselves. It is because, and it's not like the Zimbabwean problem is Chamisa's problem. It is for all Zimbabweans. If Advocate Nelson Chamisa can create an economy that is stable, that provides jobs, that an environment that is free to do your own business, then ZANU-PF people will benefit as much as the Triple C people will benefit. But in saying we are a citizens movement, I think that is a big tent, which includes not even ZANU-PF alone. Even Monzora is included there. Even Kasukuere is included there. Even Busha, I don't know how many votes he got. He was actually much better than some of these people who were getting these. Kambakwe, Zimbabwe is full of it is full of comic activities. Even at election time, it's very. I mean, I find comedy in it, but whatever that is done, I think one has to do a research to see why do some of these people get involved in all this. Is it true that they are bought by ZANU-PF, or is it that somehow, somewhere, we are not properly educated?
Okay, Doc, this is an amazing conversation, and we are back here where I said we'll be sometime last year. I can see that Fadzai Maher is quiet. I can see that Tendai Bit is quiet. I can see that my brother Ostalos is quiet. Everyone is having one narrative, which is represented by the spokesperson, Promise Mkwanan's, someone I spend a lot of time with here in South Africa. And CCC guys, I want them to understand. And I think Doc Mtenere is left. So what I'm going to do is I want you CCC guys to understand that the love that people have got for Nelson Chamisa in Zimbabwe is well understood. But the culture in the CCC is a big problem. A GNU won't work if the CCC does not change their culture. It needs to start the best of CCC. They need to understand that they have to respect people in ZANU-PF, and they need to keep repeating this. And this needs to be positioned by Chamisa. You cannot have so much, throw so much shade at ZANU-PF people in this current position, because it won't work. You have to respect ZANU-PF people, you have to respect ZANU-PF leaders, you have to respect the guys that voted for Chamisa. And I keep repeating this, I'll keep repeating this statement, because they voted for the MP, that was ZANU-PF. But then they went on to vote for Chamisa. So please keep, if Chamisa had an opportunity, remind the people about this. You were voted by ZANU-PF people, they wanted you to be the president. They're tired of the current ZANU-PF approach, but you also need to reciprocate to these people who voted for you, who are in ZANU-PF. Many young people in the rural areas voted for Chamisa, but voted for the ZANU-PF MP. And I went through those figures. Now let's quickly look at some comments here. And there are so many comments that they're moving so fast. And I wanna say, just go through the comments. And myself, I appreciate everything that is being said here. I read through all these comments, and I've got many friends in both CCC and ZANU-PF. To me, you guys are all Zimbabweans. Start respecting each other. This is how we are going to move forward. If you continue with this polarization that is there right now, the country will never go anywhere. All of you are going to still have problems in your life because you don't get each other. And this is why we have these problems in Zimbabwe. Too much polarization, too much party thinking, too much politics. Yeah, this is what is happening. And guys are saying I'm on the side of ZANU-PF. I'm on the side of everyone. I want you guys to love each other. Let your leaders solve this issue, but do not hate each other. So I was hoping that Dr. Mtenere would come back, but I think he's running out of battery. So tomorrow we'll be back. We're going to be unpacking the numbers. So for tonight, I'm going to end here. It was very, very interesting and exciting discussion. And thank you for everyone who's joined. We've had massive views over the past few days. Everyone wants to know what is going on. And thank you very much for all this. Good night, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Kuno abo bano mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know food I miss so I know food I say I know kaya marigi. Kama kwetu tikom Wewe como usasai anogaya mari
kamba kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane nyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com kamba kwe vanogaya mari vanotaura mari vanoziya mari kamba kwe vanotaura feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanoterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudze kuti chokwadi pano chizere kamba kwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotaura straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment current affairs and news kamba kwe.com usasarire kamba kwe anogaya mari